There is no need for a cold open this week, as the atmosphere in Mormonism has just turned frosty. Bad puns out of the way, last week a new apostle was called and President of the Church Dallin H spoke at BYU. Both incredibly mundane things in and of themselves, and yet they have caused a stir in the online space. So what is it about these run-of-the-mill events that's got people all fired up? Well, I'm here to break that down for you. Let's take a look. Much ado has been made about Dallin H. Oaks' first address at BYU as the president of the church, and I think with good reason.
I say to all of you, as that wise stake president said to this young man, seek friends and associates who are striving to follow the Lord, with whom you can feel the Spirit and reinforce your faith. Surround yourselves with people who believe.
What an insular and borderline culty thing to say. And that was the broader theme, a theme of in-group versus out-group, a theme of sowing mistrust of external sources of information.
An abundance of speculation and false information in podcasts and on social media surround us. Some may protest or question the truth of church doctrine without knowing or even understanding the fullness of that doctrine. Don't be persuaded by false or inaccurate information.
Also, Oaks said that,
I want to help all our members overcome present or future doubts.
Need I remind you that Oaks had such an opportunity with me, directly. He had the opportunity to address my concerns about the honesty of church leaders. He said he would, and he failed entirely to do so. Now, that episode will be linked at the end of this video. And to be honest, I think you should also go and check out the live stream I did with RFM on this topic. It would be interesting for you all to see how I deal with a live stream at 1:30 in the morning. Embarrassing for me, but interesting for all of you. Is this going to take my... Ooh. The reaction to the calling of Clark G. Gilbert as the newest apostle was unlike any I've experienced before. This is the first time, certainly while I've been doing this job, that such a viscerally negative reaction has been aimed at the new apostle. Usually, it's just eye-rolling at the fact that another white-collar professional has been called, and in that regard, Clark G. Gilbert is no exception, having worked as the Commissioner for Church Education. If we dig a little deeper into his time in that role, though, then I think it becomes quite clear and easy to see why people would be upset about what the calling of someone like Clark G. Gilbert represents, because in short, he represents strict orthodoxy. For example, when he was the Commissioner for Church Education, with oversight of the church's universities, his tenure was discussed in a 2015 piece in the Salt Lake Tribune that reported on BYU staff who said Gilbert pushed a doctrine of obedience over personal choice, sowed an environment of distrust and negatively affected some students, especially women and members of the LGBTQ community. Now, obedience over choice, doesn't that sound exactly like Satan's plan? Which, for those who don't know, is the idea that in the premortal existence, Satan gave a plan, an idea of a plan to God, and said, if everyone will just be exactly obedient to me, then they'll all get saved. And everyone apparently went, nah, not up for that. It is a way of living expressly rejected by members of the church, who instead value personal agency. And so Clark Gilbert's focus on obedience over agency naturally causes eyebrows to be raised by all but the most orthodox and unquestioning members. And nowhere is that focus on obedience over agency more clearly exemplified and distilled than the loyalty oath which was instigated in 2022. In recent weeks, Brigham Young University has enacted a kind of loyalty oath for new hires at any of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints educational campuses, and it goes beyond established questions of belief and behaviour. On top of the traditional recommend standards which are required for entrance to any of the faith's sacred temples, candidates are being asked, do they support church doctrine on marriage, family and gender? Do they say anything that would lead others to doubt the doctrines or teachings? Have they used pornography during the past few years? So under Gilbert, it appears that the hiring process got more intrusive, and particularly put bishops in the position of having to turn in employees that may have confessed things during interviews, thanks to a policy that states that all new CES employees and existing staffers who opt in must actually have a current recommend. It is critical that each employee represent the mission, values and goals of the church. These updates reflect the expectations we have for each employee to continue to engage fully in the spiritual mission that is central to each CES institution. We are grateful to have such remarkable and committed employees. And this seems particularly problematic because at BYU, other church schools, bishops are instructed to share concerns they might have about recommending this member for employment. Now, isn't it fascinating that in cases like Paul Adams in Arizona, the church will fight tooth and nail for clergy penitent privilege? And yet when it comes to who they let work in their schools, who they allow to be staff at places like BYU, then they are actively seeking to undermine it by requesting that bishops report concerns directly to church leaders. It would seem that they don't want the legal authorities informed when the contents of a bishop's interview reveals harm being done to a child, but when the content of such an interview reveals any hint of unorthodoxy by a member of the church's school faculty, then all of a sudden they want to break the privilege of that interview. Just a thought about the church's priorities. Now, all this stuff about Clark Gilbert and Dallin H Oaks really seems to have stirred up a sort of hornet's nest. I'm not touching it. And some, say, defenders of the faith may say that it doesn't really take much to stir up the hornet's nest of the ex-mormon internet. But what I will say is that these two events do seem to signal some sort of direction for the church. And so we can find ourselves asking the following question. If the former surgeon Russell M. Nelson was known for his narcissism, then we may ask ourselves what will define the presidency of former lawyer Dallin H. Oaks. I don't think it will come as a surprise to anyone that a legalistic approach to rules, a focus on the traditional family, and somewhat of an authoritarian bent are beginning already to define his presidency. All this before he's even been presented at General Conference for a sustaining vote. Now, he may have a couple of years left, though maybe not. Now, what is interesting is that currently, the man who said this,
and to be perfectly frank, there have been times when members or leaders in the church have simply made mistakes,
is set to follow on from the man who said this. The church doesn't seek apologies, and we don't give them. We're going to have a prophet who admits that mistakes have been made, following a prophet who said that we do not seek apologies, nor do we give them. And I wonder how Clark G. Gilbert will pivot then.
And then when he passed away, I had to pivot and turn to a new prophet.
But at the moment, between his pretty overt calls for people to mistrust outside information and his appointment of Clark G. Gilbert, it would seem the Mormon Church is heading down a dark and insular road of conformism and the enforcement of orthodoxy, which will surely just precipitate the exodus of the more nuanced members who stay for cultural or pragmatic reasons. Even those who have faith in the Church's truth claims but may express that faith in an unorthodox way are at risk under Clark G. Gilbert. If not now, then certainly by the time he becomes prophet, which is incredibly likely, in a statistical sense, given just how young he was when he was called as an apostle. And while the church may be going down a dark path, I'm determined to keep some whimsy involved in all of this, so I'm going to keep climbing trees. And as always, this is just one man's thoughts. I don't claim to speak for God, just for myself. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and once you're done there, consider subscribing, because we aren't far away from 50,000 subscribers, and while it's an arbitrary number, it would be a fun one to reach. Really though, you just need to watch this next video here if you can't be bothered to subscribe, because YouTube just throws these videos to you anyway. Oh, and I'm only able to do this work thanks to the incredible support of you, the viewers. So if you value this work and want to see it continue, please consider joining my Patreon for ad-free bonus content, or just giving a recurring contribution through DonorBox. No matter what you do, thank you, and I'll see you on the next one, which, again, is just here.